people like from the bioreactor supplier side and also the application side, the people who are in the lab. So why do we limit ourselves with sticking so much to the history, right? From the history, we have the bioreactor has the bottom parts, the head plate. That's where we normally take the measuring, put in the measuring technology. Well, why don't we step out of that and put it another row 10 centimeters above? Of course, we have a liquid level that has to rise. In batch cultivations, maybe it's not covered at the beginning, maybe later.
Welcome back to the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast. I'm David Brühlmann, your host, and we are continuing our insightful conversation with Katharina Dahlmann on Process Analytical Technology. Katharina is an application and PAT expert at Hamilton. In this second half, we are taking PAT to the next level. Let's jump right back in. Are you juggling the complexities of CMC development while trying to enjoy the beauty of biotech? Have you ever wondered if there's a way to simplify bioprocessing? Welcome to the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast, where we're diving headfirst into the very challenges you face. We're breaking it down, demystifying the jargon, and giving you the keys to unlock your full potential. I'm your host, David Brühlmann, and I get it. With 15 plus years in the biotech industry, I face the same challenges you do. There's a way to simplify and streamline so you can remove complexity, you can skip trials and errors, deliver without delay your groundbreaking therapy to clinics and market, and still enjoy every single step. Do you want to learn how industry experts and I did it? Grab a cup of coffee and your favorite notebook and pen. Now is the time to take your bioprocessing game to the next level. Let's smarten up biotech. Let's speak about these challenges for a minute, because using PAT technologies is great. I mean, it has enabled the industry just to skyrocket efficiency, productivity, and we're at a wholly different level than we used to be. But at the same time, as you just alluded to, Katharina, there are a lot of challenges involved. It's not that simple. So where do you see the biggest challenges and pitfalls that prevent our industry to fully adopt these technologies and to fully tap into the potential?
I think the limits of measuring at the same time to the costs that you have to get all these sensors in, right? I think we all know how that is. You discover, there's something changing in the process. I would like to deep dive into that. So let's add another parameter and let's get more information out of that. And then we have the challenge that there's either no hole. If we, for example, talk about a stainless steel bioreactor, we have the ingot port at the bottom and we are limited in holes there. So then we still have some holes from the head plate where we can go into, but then that is changing the shear stress that you have in the process. And buying most of the advanced PAT solutions, I would say, is an investment that you have to take. And then what is the added value out of it? That's so hard to evaluate. And even for us, I mean, a lot of the customers are asking, can you share some customer data with us where we can see the advantages? Even if somebody else has seen that advantage, how do we know that it's an advantage for another process? Because that can be totally different. It can be another strain. Even if it is a similar strain, it doesn't mean that with the media and the feeding strategy that is behaving the same. So it's so complex to evaluate.
So is there also a barrier to entry? Let's say for a smaller company, it could potentially not make sense to invest heavily in PAT technologies because it's just too complex and perhaps takes the focus off what matters at that stage of the development.
I think especially an investment in early stage of process development makes sense. And there again, we are limited in space. The small bioreactors, I mean, for the smallest volumes, you can start for process development like 15 milliliters. It's nearly impossible to go beyond the standard parameters, pH, oxygen, and temperature. Maybe CO2, but that's all you can do. To go with anything advanced is challenging. I think to actually get a good, and complete is a big word here, but a more advanced measuring technology, I think you would need at least reach 1 to 2 liter. And then 10 liter is like an optimum where we can go from the head plate and in reusable measuring technology from the bottom. So then you can have, with good luck, up to 8 sensors, and maybe with the off-gas analytics can extract like up to 30 parameters. But for that, you already need to establish a good soft sensor background with modeling. But that's, I think, the point where you get good understanding. So yes, I think, also from a PAT provider, we need to be aware that startups, small companies, R&D are the future. The same like universities, right? These people would move into the industry. So that's a good starting point to establish these measuring technologies, and then to evaluate, what do I really need in production pilot plant? And also the characteristics. Everybody nowadays is talking about CO2 measurement, for example. In small scales, the CO2 impact might not be that big because the hydrostatic pressure is not that big of an impact. But if we go into the big tanks, 500 liters and above, the hydrostatic pressure starts kicking in basically. And that's something you have to be aware of during your process development, and the scalability, also the oxygen accessibility for the cells. And scaling is really advanced. It's not easy, also not with PAT solutions.
Is there any quick win you can have actually when you're scaling by using PAT, like any hack, or is it still quite complicated?
I think it's still very challenging. The measurement technology itself, from just the perspective on the raw data, that's easy to scale. It will measure in small and big scales the same. That's how most of the measuring technologies are designed. But let's take the next step. Is the distribution of the cells of the media always the same? Do I have another shear stress? Do I have a good operating control cascade for oxygen? Is OTR, KLA, how is that impacting? So already the next step can impact the measurement itself, because it's not the same surrounding basically that we are presenting to the sensor. And that's something, of course, we can see.
Now, let's switch gear a bit and let's focus on the modeling and the machine learning and the fancy technology side of things, because obviously, yes, we are in exciting times, and pretty much every day we have new technologies and new ways to interpret the data. How do you see PAT changing, and how can we make better decisions and use that technology better with machine learning and artificial intelligence?
I think a lot of measuring technology is becoming smaller and smaller to fit better into the process, or to get more PAT in, maybe combining certain parameters into one whole. Or a big change is the single-use measuring technology, or the equipment itself, where we would get the feeling now that we are not limited with stainless steel bioreactors. It's plastic. Let's just poke another hole in and go for it. It sounds easy, but in the end, it's not. I think the trend is going towards to get more in, miniaturize them, to fit it all in at the defined conditions. I sometimes raise the questions when I have people like from the bioreactor supplier side and also the application side, the people who are in the lab. So why do we limit ourselves with sticking so much to the history, right? From the history, we have the bioreactor has the bottom parts, the head plate. That's where we normally take the measuring, put in the measuring technology. Well, why don't we step out of that and put it another row 10 centimeters above? Of course, we have a liquid level that has to rise. In batch cultivations, maybe it's not covered at the beginning, maybe later. So I think sometimes we have to be a little bit more creative and step out of the comfort zone. But also on the other hand, to ask people from well-established big pharma companies, for example, to do that step, to take that step, the risk is quite high. So again, not easy. Yeah, I'm curious where we are going. I repeat myself now, but I think the combination is at least the near future of combining inline, offline, and the modeling approaches.
Yes. So, and then to create models that help us make decisions or control the bioreactor and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, I think we first have to understand what is changing and what is happening. And that's the baseline, right? To take the next decision and to say, okay, we changed the feeding strategy. We stop at that point. And I mean, currently we have more touch base on upstream PAT, but I think it would be more and more that we connect up and downstream so that we can predict product quality, product concentration before we enter the downstream process, for example, and start evaluating or pushing quality to a high level already in the early stage of a process.
Yeah, let's make this now very practical, Katharina. What advice would you give to a company that wants to develop a robust PAT technology? Is there some simple, easy to apply advice?
Measure as much as you can, especially in the early process development stage, and then kick out one after the other or leave them in and see how you can combine the signals to extract the process understanding and use that to navigate through your process development and then to have a really robust production.
That's great. So yeah, what I'm hearing is use PAT early and use it to acquire knowledge, basically, right?
Yeah.
We have covered a lot of ground today. What is the most important takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with from our conversation today?
You are not alone. Sounds very dramatic, maybe, but I think we all have to be aware that we don't need to be an expert in certain disciplines. So why do we have to be an expert about PAT, process development, microbiology, metabolics, whatever? I think to share our knowledge and to have people sitting together on a table discussing from different perspectives, different effects that you are seeing can be very productive and very effective. That's one of the greatest things that I have as a joy takeaway from my daily work, that I sit together with our customers, giving them my knowledge from the PAT measuring background, basically. And then they say, yeah, we have seen that the cells are behaving like this and that when we change. Yeah. And I can see that together with you in the data. Oh, that's so great that we can now see that in real time. Now I really have to think what is impacting my cells and how I deal with that and how I change that for the future. So yeah, I think having experts on one table is a good approach.
Having experts at one table and to interact is a good approach. That's a good word to conclude. Thank you, Katharina, for sharing these insights. Where can people reach you?
I think LinkedIn is the easiest with the broadest network. So yeah, LinkedIn, and I can also give you the email address. I don't know if you want to put them in the show notes.
I will leave the LinkedIn in the show notes, so please reach out to Katharina, ask advice, ask the expert. And once again, thank you so much, Katharina, for sharing all the insights and for being on the show today.
Thank you, David. It was great. Thank you for the good conversation, the great questions. And I'm excited where we will go with all these experts that we have out there.
And there you have it, scientists. A comprehensive look at the transformative power of process analytical technology in bioprocessing. Can you please tell us how you like this episode by leaving a review on Apple Podcast? I love hearing from you. Thank you so much. And perhaps you don't know where to start, how to leverage PAT, how you should go about. As your fractional CTO, I'd love to help you identify the first low-hanging fruits. Just book a free call with me to get started. Until next time, stay smart, biotech scientists. All right, smart scientists. That's all for today on the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on your journey to bioprocess mastery. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. By doing so, we can empower more scientists like you. For additional bioprocessing tips, visit us at smartbiotechscientist.com. Stay tuned for more inspiring biotech insights in our next episode. Until then, let's continue to smarten up biotech.